Nokia. The name once meant phones. Indestructible bricks, the legendary 3310, and that addictive snake game. In the early 2000s, Nokia wasn't just a company. It was a global empire, owning half the mobile phone market. But then, in just a few years, it all came crashing down. One mistake, one missed opportunity, and Nokia went from king to forgotten. So, what happened? How did the phone giant lose it all? Buckle up, because this is the wild story of Nokia's rise, dominance, and catastrophic fall. Nokia ruled phones until one mistake ended it. Quick question. Did you ever own a Nokia? What was your favorite model? Drop it in the comments below. I'm curious. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss more crazy business stories like this. Let's get into it. To understand Nokia's fall, we need to start with its rise. Nokia wasn't always about phones. Founded in 1865 in Finland, it started as a paper mill. Yeah, paper. Over decades, it dabbled in everything. Rubber boots, cables, even TVs. But in the 1980s, Nokia took a gamble that changed history: mobile phones. Back then, mobile phones were clunky, expensive, and mostly for rich business types. Nokia saw potential. In 1987, they launched the Mobira Cityman, one of the first handheld phones. It was a brick, weighed a pound, and cost thousands. But it was a status symbol. Fun fact, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev was caught on camera using one, and suddenly, Nokia was cool. By the 1990s, Nokia was all in on phones. They pioneered GSM technology, the backbone of 2G networks, and released hit after hit. The Nokia 5110, customizable covers, the 3210, built-in antenna, and then the legend, the Nokia 3310, indestructible with a battery that lasted forever and snake to keep you hooked. By 2000, Nokia wasn't just a company, it was the company. They owned 40% of the global phone market, selling 400 million phones a year. Nokia's secret sauce? They made phones for everyone. Cheap models for developing countries, fancy ones for executives. They had style, durability, and simplicity. While competitors like Motorola and Ericsson scrambled, Nokia was untouchable. The early 2000s were Nokia's golden age. They weren't just selling phones, they were selling a lifestyle. Remember those satisfying button clicks? That monophonic ringtone? Nokia was everywhere. In 2005, they sold their billionth phone. 1 billion. No one could touch them. Nokia took risks with design. They made phones shaped like teardrops, lipsticks, even gaming phones like the N-Gage. Some flopped, but others, massive hits. They dominated emerging markets like India and Africa, where their cheap, reliable phones were a lifeline for millions. Behind the scenes, Nokia was a tech powerhouse. They invested billions in R&D, building cutting-edge cameras and software. Their Symbian operating system powered millions of devices. In 2007, Nokia's market cap hit $150 billion. They were bigger than Apple, Google, and Samsung combined. Let that sink in. But here's the thing about being on top. There's only one way to go, and Nokia's fall was coming faster than anyone expected. January 9th, 2007. Steve Jobs steps on stage and unveils the iPhone. No buttons, just a touchscreen. It wasn't just a phone, it was a computer in your pocket. The crowd went wild, but in Nokia's headquarters, they laughed. It's a toy, they thought. No keyboard? Good luck. That was their first mistake. To be fair, Nokia wasn't clueless. In 2007, they had the N95, a beast of a phone with a 5-megapixel camera, GPS, and Wi-Fi. It was cutting edge. But here's the problem. Nokia's Symbian OS was clunky. It was built for feature phones, not touchscreens. The iPhone? It was intuitive, sleek, and app-driven. Apple redefined what a phone could be. Then came Google's Android. Open source, customizable, and adopted by Samsung, HTC, and others. By 2008, the smartphone race was on, and Nokia was falling behind. Their response? Keep pumping out Symbian phones. They doubled down on an outdated system while Apple and Google rewrote the rules. Nokia tried to catch up. In 2008, they released the 5800 Express Music, their first touchscreen. It sold well, but the software was a mess. Apps crashed, the interface lagged, and users hated it compared to the iPhone. Nokia was playing checkers while Apple and Google played chess. Nokia's biggest mistake wasn't ignoring smartphones. It was arrogance. They thought their brand was invincible. They had 50% market share, billions in revenue, and decades of dominance. Why change? But the world was changing, and Nokia wasn't. Internally, Nokia was a mess. They had brilliant engineers working on a new OS called MeeGo, which could have competed with iOS and Android. In 2010, the Nokia N9 ran MeeGo, and it was gorgeous, smooth, modern, and loved by critics. But Nokia's leadership, they killed it. Why? Because they made a deal with the devil. In 2011, Nokia's new CEO, Stephen Elop, a former Microsoft exec, made a shocking announcement. Nokia was ditching Symbian and MeeGo to partner with Microsoft's Windows Phone. The goal? Build phones running Windows to compete with Apple and Android. Sounds good, right? Wrong. Windows Phone was a disaster. It launched half-baked, with no app ecosystem. Developers ignored it because, well, why build for Windows when iOS and Android had millions of users? Nokia's Lumia phones were beautiful, great cameras, sleek designs, but the software was a deal-breaker. Customers didn't want it. By 2012, Nokia's market share was in freefall. Samsung and Apple were eating their lunch. Nokia went from selling 400 million phones a year to under 100 million. The Windows deal was a death sentence. Some even called Elop a Trojan horse sent by Microsoft to tank Nokia. Conspiracy or not, the results were brutal. By 2013, Nokia was bleeding cash. They laid off tens of thousands of workers, closed factories, and sold off assets. Their market cap, once $150 billion, was down to $11 billion. The phone giant was on life support. In 2013, Microsoft bought Nokia's phone division for $7.2 billion. It was a fire sale. Microsoft hoped to use Nokia's brand to boost Windows Phone, but it flopped. By 2016, Microsoft wrote off the entire deal, and the Nokia brand was all but dead in phones. Nokia's story doesn't end there. In 2016, a company called HMD Global licensed the Nokia brand and started making Android phones. They're decent, nostalgic designs, solid cameras, but they're a shadow of the old Nokia. The empire was gone. So, what can we learn from Nokia's fall? First, never get comfortable. Nokia thought they were untouchable, but no one is. Second, adapt or die. They clung to Symbian and ignored the smartphone wave. Third, leadership matters. Bad decisions, like the Windows deal, can sink even the biggest giants. Nokia's collapse paved the way for today's tech world. Apple and Samsung dominate, but new players like Xiaomi and Oppo are rising. The lesson? Innovation never stops. Companies that don't evolve get left behind, no matter how big they are. Nokia's story is a roller coaster, a tale of triumph, arrogance, and collapse. They shaped the phone industry, gave us memories, and then vanished. But their legacy lives on in every smartphone we use today. So, what do you think? Could Nokia have survived? And what's your favorite Nokia memory? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic business stories. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Nokia's history, check out our video on another tech giant's fall. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep hustling.